how do you change human behavior? Everybody knows that the biggest problem in Ukraine is corruption. Everybody knows that. You know, Poroshenko knows that. The corrupt officials and politicians know that. The population knows that. You know, and there's been a lot of talk of, you know, how do you change that? There have been, you know, new bodies put in place, anti-corruption. I don't know if it's a ministry or organization, but, you know, to address the issue of corruption. The problem is that a lot of the people that are in government that are responsible for implementing anti-corruption measures are corrupt. So it's kind of like a vicious circle. And I think to this extent, Poroshenko's trying to be a middle of the roader in terms of the approach. He doesn't want to disrupt things too quick. I think he's committed to rooting out corruption, but he doesn't want to do anything drastic. The problem is that if he doesn't do something drastic, he's never going to get to first base, because leaving all these people in place that are responsible for the corruption, particularly at the higher levels, will make sure it never gets implemented. So, yes, there's a lot of disruption that would be caused if he, for instance, went in and fired all the judges and the prosecutors. But maybe that's what's needed in this case, because if there aren't significant signs of improvement on the corruption front in the next 6 months or so, there will be another Maidan. There will be more unrest. I think Poroshenko is going to lose his presidency. There's got to be some significant progress shown, or the Ukrainian people are just not going to have the patience to continue another 2, 3, 4 years with lots of talk about corruption, while the people up on top that are wallowing in it are still in place. So he's absolutely got. I think he's got a very limited time frame to do that. Between now and the end of the year, there have to be some high-level prosecutions. There have to be some drastic purgings, because I think they all know who's corrupt and who isn't. I mean, he was an insider to all that. He saw it. He knows, where the skeletons in the closet are, and certainly there are enough people that do know who's guilty. So just do a wholesale purge, particularly at the very high levels of government, and start over. And yeah, it will limit, the effectiveness of the government for a certain period of time, but it's certainly better than doing what he's doing now, and that is allowing a lot of these people to stay in place and consolidate their power, and do their conspiring and plotting to eventually unseat them so that they can continue on their merry ways. So yeah, it's time to do your business or get off the pot. And he, for all the good he has done, and I think he's had significant progress on a lot of fronts, this is one area where I think Poroshenko has failed miserably, and that is to really put some oomph in the anti-corruption process. A lot of talk, creation of bodies, appointment of people, but no action. Like you say, none of the oligarchs have been prosecuted, none of the high-level bureaucrats have been persecuted, and people are starting to get mean and ordinary on this issue. Even here in the diaspora, I know I have a friend, Antonina Kumka, who, as you know, has been very active in raising humanitarian funds and whatever. And a lot of these people are getting very frustrated that after a year of, raising funds to support the Ukrainian military, buying uniforms and shoes and stuff, they're still doing this a year later. Why is the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian military not able to supply enough shoes and boots to the people it sends out to the front? There's no excuse for that. There's absolutely no excuse. And like I say, there's a lot of disillusionment now happening here in the diaspora over the slow pace of purging the corruption and inefficiency, and particularly the Ministry of Defense, at a critical time.
Yeah, can you comment on that letter that was written about stopping the flow of humanitarian aid?
Well, they didn't say they would stop the flow of humanitarian aid but they would stop dealing with the government, is what the letter said, that they would work directly with the soldiers, the battalions, the whatever, and just bypass the Ministry of Defense, because it seems that the Ministry of Defense, rather than being an enabler, and an expediter and a facilitator of getting humanitarian aid, is doing exactly the opposite. And it's causing a lot of frustration on the part of the Ukrainians in the diaspora. And they raise funds, they do whatever, and instead of getting help, they get roadblocks, they get corruption, stuff disappears, and they don't, and they're starting to feel that so long as the humanitarian aid is coming from abroad, the Ministry of Defense is not going to do anything, to improve the situation. They're going to let those diasporans take care of that while we do our own thing. And it's just both unfair and unethical for that to continue. So I'm glad that there are voices of concern being raised, strong voices, and they need that. Like people need to start kicking, instead of praising Poroshenko, and he's had, a lot of praise and a lot of it justified, people should start kicking Poroshenko in the ass to get moving on things like corruption, reform of the military, etc. Because it's been a very poor track record in those respects. And it's not because there aren't, qualified people to go in and clean up and take charge and do what needs to be done. He's unfortunately still relying on his, old circle of cronies and networks. Some of them are good people and patriots, but some of them are not. And that's got to change. The pace of anti-corruption measures has got to significantly increase, or he's going to lose his popular support, not only here in the diaspora, but in Ukraine itself.